Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jenny Kroger, and I'm the Communications Director for the FSU College of Education. I want to thank you all for joining us today to learn more about our graduate programs and certificates in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies here at FSU. Before I hand things over to our presenters, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So we're going to start with an overview of the department, and then we'll move into program-specific presentations. During this time, we'd like you to let us know in the chat which programs you're interested in so that we can assign you to the appropriate breakout rooms so you can learn more about our programs later on and ask specific questions. But we ask that you please leave your microphone on mute during the main presentations. So if you have a question, please post it in the chat. And we also ask that if you haven't done so yet, please turn off your video just in case we encounter some bandwidth problems. That should cover everything. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tamara Bertrand-Jones, Associate Chair in the Department of Ed Leadership and Policy Studies.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are y'all today?
Doing great.
Thank you. Feel free to give us some thumbs up, heads up if you have any questions. Our chat is active and folks will be monitoring that, so feel free to drop any questions in the chat that you may have. My name is Tamara Bertrand-Jones, and I'm an Associate Professor of Higher Education and the Associate Chair for the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies. And so we welcome you to this preview and overview of our department. We have all of our programs represented, and faculty from our programs are here to give you more information about those programs. And so we look forward to getting to know you as we go through our evening together. Before we break off into more information about the individual programs, I'd like to share with you just a little bit about our department. Our department has recently adopted a land acknowledgement, and a land acknowledgement is a statement or an acknowledgement of the contributions of indigenous peoples to the lands on which we stand. And here in Tallahassee, we stand on the lands of the Appalachian Nation, the Muskogee Creek Nation, the Miccosukee Tribe of Florida, and the Seminole Tribe of Florida. This land acknowledgement, this statement that we have crafted, is an acknowledgement for us in recognizing that this land is scarred with a painful past of settler colonial violence and enslavement, and the desolation of culture and the forced removal of indigenous bodies. As educators, we honor the knowledge of these tribes and their people and acknowledge that indigenous students, faculty, and administrators are vital to Florida State University. We embrace the decolonization of our educational system and commit to disrupting suppressive systems through the exploration of many truths and lived experiences, and creating room for those who are often excluded by harmful colonial erasures in our practice and pedagogy. We felt that this was an acknowledgement that we wanted to make as a department, and to let you and others know that we strive to create an inclusive environment where all students are able to thrive in the environment that we've created. What is the mission of the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies? And here in our department, we're focused on educational improvement at all levels. We have a variety of programs that offer interdisciplinary perspectives that shape theory and inform practice at the local, state, national, and global levels. I would say that part of our core mission is preparing scholars and leaders that are committed to using critical inquiry and research to create learning environments that are focused on excellence and social change. Some of our strategic priorities for this year, we've decided to focus on two main priorities: our enhanced equity and inclusion, and establishing shared advising practices. We recognize that the Department of Educational Leadership sits within a larger ecosystem that is made up of the College of Education and Florida State University, and that within each of these levels are larger or broader strategic priorities and goals. And so we wanted to make sure that our strategic plans and priorities also fit with those of the college and the university. Again, the 2 or 3 here that we've decided to share on this slide are promoting and supporting impactful research. One of the ways that we do this is promoting scholarly dialogues. They are monthly dialogues. They were actually created by Dr. Patrice Ayatrola, who's on this call. They're called Relevant Research Roundtables. And the R3 series is an opportunity to hear from our colleagues across the department, in the university and outside of the university, as well as our students sharing research, professional development, or other scholarly topics that help to make us better scholars, better practitioners, better thinkers, better people. Now, our second priority is enhancing equity and inclusion. And last year, we created a Coalition for Justice and Inclusion, which is a group that has been tasked with continuing to have discussions, as well as working with the department chair and the associate chair in developing long-term action plans focused on justice and equity. This year we will be implementing, or in January, we'll be implementing a departmental climate survey and conducting focus groups with our students to better understand their experiences of the department and how we can improve that for the future. And then lastly, our commitment for our priority for this year is establishing shared advising practices. Given the ways that our faculty work very closely with students and scholars, we felt that it was important for us to take some time and devote some energy to developing some shared understandings around advising and looking at how we can improve our practices to better support our students. In terms of demographics in our department, we have, as represented here on the chart, 54% of the students in our department are white, and the other 46% are Black, identify as multiracial, Asian, or Latinx, or Hispanic. We have several students also that are not from the United States, and add to the broader cultural diversity of our program, of our department, excuse me. There are several program areas, or larger, broader program areas here within the department, and the first that I'll tell you about is the Educational Leadership and Policy major. And within that major are 2 main programs, the Educational Leadership and Administration, which you'll hear about in just a second, as well as the Education Policy and Evaluation major. Connected to Educational Leadership and Policy is also the Foundations of Education major. And within that degree area are 2 main programs, the History and Philosophy of Education and the International and Multicultural Education. And then lastly, the third major area in the department is higher education. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Brad Cox to tell you a little bit more about the higher education program.
Hi, everybody hear me all right? Yep, excellent, okay.
Yes.
Thank you for passing it this way, and I'll be the first of several, so we're gonna go through several of these programs so you get a taste of many of them. So I'm Brad Cox, an associate professor and the coordinator of the higher education program here at FSU. So I want to start by giving you just a bit of info about our program generally, and then we'll get into some of the specifics of the degrees. I don't have control of the slides. Hey, perfect.
Tell me when you're ready to advance.
Oh, I'll try to do that. Okay. So a couple of big picture things about the program. The first is that we share a number of commitments that we're trying to enact in multiple ways. And this shows up in our classes, this shows up in the mentoring we do with our students, the curriculum, the specific assignments, and the other professional development activities that we try to promote among our students. So first, internally, we talk of 3 pillars, that being leadership, social justice, and student success. And those things are woven into literally every class. We start every class syllabus with an acknowledgement of those 3 things and demonstrating how the class is reaching those pillars and how we're serving those pillars. There's also, particularly in our master's degree program, an alignment with the core competencies as outlined by NASPA and ACPA. If you don't know what those are the two major professional associations for student affairs professionals. So we try to match up what we're doing with what they say is really important. Last, we do a bunch of partnerships. We have graduate assistants who are serving roles in academic affairs and in student affairs across a wide variety of offices throughout the entire university. We continue to work with them on a pretty regular basis. We do offer an awful lot of assistantships with stipends, and those often, or actually I think just about always, include a tuition waiver, so that not only do you get your courses for free, but we get you a stipend on top of that. And we tend to operate off of a cohort model. So we admit folks primarily in the fall, and we'll give you some details about specific programs here in a second. But then you're with that same group of students, roughly the same group of students throughout your entire program. So you get to build some connections that way and start to develop opportunities for learning to happen outside of the classroom. Last thing is I want to point out in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, we're going to focus here specifically on the master's and the PhD degrees. For those of you who are working professionals, who are mid-level management, who are looking to go into more senior level management roles, in addition to our PhD program, I would encourage you to take a good listen to the online EDD program, as that is specifically targeting working professionals who are looking to move up in within the institution they're at. Can I go to the next slide then? There we go. So one of the degrees we offer is an MS, a Master of Science, specifically in higher education. It includes or requires 39 hours worth of coursework. For most students, that's a 2-year process if we are doing it in a full-time capacity. And full-time, by the way, means full-time student. Most, if not all of our students are on assistantships as well. Beyond that, if you were to take it part-time, which is true, we have actually a pretty good mix of full-time and part-time students. Generally speaking, it ends up taking an extra year to be able to do that because you don't take quite so many courses each time. Beyond that, it is, like I said, a cohort model, and our master's degree program tends to get, anywhere from 20 to 30 students, roughly averaging around 25 students each year. Can I get the next slide? I mentioned in particular that the pieces of the pillars, sorry, not the pieces, the pillars of our program that we build into our curriculum. And we've really structured the curriculum pretty intentionally so that in year 1, we give you all the introductory tools that you need to be able to operate effectively using any of these 3 pillars. So we put a focus on introducing you to the field, getting you familiar with theories of student development, highlighting diversity within higher education, and then specifically touching on leadership as an entire course. And then as we get those foundations laid in the first semester and the first year, the second year is where we turn those insights that you develop in the first year and really focus on how we translate those into practice. And that shows up in the courses that include very hands-on assistantship and practicum courses, as well as courses specifically on how to conduct outcomes assessment. And then our capstone course is one where we really reconnect back to the NASPA and ACPA competencies so that we are able to show and demonstrate for potential employers in particular that yes, our students are leaving this program with a high level rating on all of these different core competencies, which really helps secure good jobs for our students upon graduation. If we can go to the next, no, you're good. Yeah, we'll do the PhD. So our PhD in higher education, as I mentioned earlier, the EDD is targeting more towards practitioner scholars. And in this case, the PhD would be more towards scholars or scholar practitioners. So this degree is a doctorate that requires 57 hours worth of coursework, including 12 hours of core courses. We also include 15 hours of electives, and these are electives that you work out with your advisor. You get a temporary advisor when you would first enroll in the program, but that over time, as you get to know the faculty and the faculty get to know you, you and the faculty can work together to transition to an advisor who more closely aligns with your methodological orientation or the topic that you want to do or the type of professional position that you might like to go on afterwards. Beyond the elective courses and the core courses, we're going to encourage you to get a specialization. And we call this the outside discipline, but it's a specialization in something other than what we as the core higher education faculty focus on. So getting a sense of the theory from sociology or political science or social psychology, those types of things help you see the world of higher education from a more well-rounded perspective. So we encourage courses outside of there. And again, these are things you work out with your advisor. And then because it's a research and scholarly degree, we put a good emphasis on those 21 hours of research courses. For students who are taking the PhD route full-time, if you're a full-time assistant, or sorry, if you're a 20-hour-a-week graduate assistant and you are a full-time student, we tend to get folks out in about 4 years, plus or minus. And then for students who are taking fewer courses while maintaining a full-time job, that tends to take 5 or 6 years. And again, just because you're not taking quite as many courses at the same time. Again, we do that in a cohort model, although because there's a more substantial split between full-time and part-time students in our PhD programs. There's a good bit of crossover between the cohorts. But generally speaking, a little bit like the master's degree program, we start off the early courses in a very intentional, kind of ordered, structured way, and then gradually open up the curriculum to allow the student to have much greater control over the electives and the methodological courses and the outside discipline courses. All right, I think this next one is our last slide regarding higher education. So a couple of the core courses that you will be asked to take first is this pro seminar, which is really neat. And Dr. Bertrand Jones is running that here. So don't let her leave without telling you a little bit about that. But it's an opportunity for you to be kind of socialized into what it means to be a emerging scholar in the field, and connects you with resources, introduces you to faculty, all kinds of things. What a great course. Then you also will take things like student development theories, history of higher education. We'll get into organizational theory. We'll get into politics of higher education, and a lot of options across those particular kind of domains within the field. A couple of things that I really want to highlight before I quiet down and get out of the way here is methodological flexibility. So we have, and this is awesome, we have some folks on our faculty who are absolutely expert in qualitative methods and analyses and a number of different specific techniques within qualitative traditions. We have folks who can cover every bit of the most advanced statistical analyses that you can imagine. And then we have folks who are doing darn good work by integrating and crossing over those traditions. And so can you. We also focus very much on scholarly engagement, and that involves a number of things. There are specific trainings that are offered. Dr. Bertrand Jones already mentioned the R3s, the Relevant Research Roundtables. But then we also have additional professional development options that are made available through faculty grants, and the college and the university, and indeed our department, offer support for students to go attend and present at conferences across the country. And now we do it sitting at our desk, but we'd help with the travel before that. And then typically folks concentrate, but there's again some crossover between these things. Student affairs track, it's not a track, I'm sorry, it's a concentration where the electives and such are focused on public policy or student affairs, though again, we have a number of students who are interested in both and crossover. I'll be available here in a little while to answer some specific questions about the higher ed program. And until then, I hope you'll really pay attention, in particular to this EDD that I believe is coming up next if you are a mid-level professional looking to move up in your organization. So thanks for your attention. I'm happy to answer questions later, and I'll pass it off now.
All right, good evening, everyone. I think I am next on the radar for educational leadership. I'm Dr. Small, the current director of our online educational leadership and administration program. And so I'm hoping to share a lot of information for those of you who may have an interest in going into school leadership. And so it is a program that offers a wide variety of options, but overarching, thinking about the intent of the program for those that are looking to going into school administration. And so it's, of course, a state-approved program. that prepares you for level 1 certification. And so we have centered all of our curriculum around the current Florida Principal Leadership Standards to prepare you for taking the Florida Educational Leadership Examination. And so there is a certification component that's required for the degree completion. And so as you're going through our program, our intent is to ensure that you're prepared for school leadership, but also successfully able to complete the certification requirements. It's fully online with 3 different tracks. And so we offer a master's, a specialist, as well as a modified certificate program. And it is also a cohort model where students come in together and over the course of 2 years are taking the same courses each semester to successfully complete the program in a 2-year span. Curriculum instruction, and so a lot of what our program has embedded over the past few years are those practical skills that school leaders need in terms of a building administrator. So one of the flagship components is our mentoring and internship component. That's a 40-hour component that's built into 2 specific courses. During those 40 hours each semester, to accumulate into that 80 hours, you're expected to work with a supervising principal. And so most of our candidates are current teachers. We do have a few candidates who are currently working in a quasi-district level position or a dean of students, but you're expected to work with a supervising principal at a school building over the course of those 2 semesters to get a lot of the hands-on practical experiences that school leaders need to be prepared for running a school as an assistant principal. The field experience component, which encompasses about 165 hours over the course of the 2-year program, are those entry-level experiences that we build into our courses to give you, again, exposure to different areas of school leadership. Oftentimes as teachers, we're able to see what goes on in the 4 walls of our classrooms, but being able to also participate in SAC meetings, participate in budget and planning, participating in a school improvement plan development. And so those 165 hours are intended to give you those stair-step experiences over the course of the program to prepare you for taking the certification exam. And then of course we have a wide range of practicing school administrators as well as former administrators that are facilitating the coursework. And so that becomes another layer of support in terms of our faculty being made up of individuals who've walked in those shoes, who walk through the hallways, who've been school administrators, and then providing support through our course mentors as another layer of support to make sure that you're able to be successful in the program. In terms of outcomes, this is one of my favorite slides and just kind of information to share. These are our current pass rates from the FELE as of this past October. And so to your right, you'll see our subtest assessment scores in comparison to the state averages. And so for each of the subtests of the FELE, we consistently rank in the top as #1 throughout the state for almost all of our subtests every reporting period. And so that's something that we're very, very proud of. And you can see the drastic difference in the state average compared to students who complete our program and their successfulness on the FELE. Another kind of component to kind of make mention of is also for students who are looking at going into other areas of school leadership. The FELE requirement being one that we want to make sure that you have under your belt, but our program is also equipped to set aside time to make sure that school leaders are prepared for going into district level positions as well, which often require successful completion of the FELE. There's another component at the bottom on the right as well in terms of remediation plans. Typically that's not something that we have to go through with our students, but if you are in a situation, particularly with the pandemic that's going on now, and you're not able to successfully complete the FELE in time, we try to make sure that we put supports in place in terms of a remediation plan and working hand in hand with professors to ensure that you're able to successfully complete that component at the appropriate time. Program statistics, and so currently we have around 88 students that are enrolled in our program, and of course our master's program, which is at 47 current students, is our largest component. Students come from throughout the state of Florida, and then also thinking about the interaction that we try to build into having students network and collaborate with students that are throughout the state of Florida in an online platform is another big area that we're very proud of. Completion components and graduation requirements. And so our program does require a face-to-face orientation Our upcoming orientation is set for December the 4th. And then of course, each semester that we're admitting students, we have a required face-to-face orientation that is done virtually, of course, given our situation in terms of credit hours. And so for the modified program, there's a total of 27 credit hours that you have to complete. And then for the master's and the specialist degree, a total of 33 hours, which also includes 2 courses per semester over the course of the 2-year program. In terms of graduation, in addition to passing each of your courses each semester, successfully passing the FELE, as well as completing your field experiences and your internship components. And then also there's an ESOL requirement that's required by the state that's built into one of our courses. Oftentimes students come in with the ESOL endorsement already on their certification. Per DOE, we still have to walk you through the consent decree and things that are dealing with our ESOL population. And so that's something else that's required prior to completing the program. In terms of core courses and their alignment, and I won't read through every single core course here, but in essence, the core courses, there are 9 in total that are required by the state. And so these are driven by those state requirements to expose you to the Florida Principal Leadership Standards. And each of the courses are built around certain competencies and skills that you must have and demonstrate on the FELE. And so what we've tried to do is to break those different comps and skills out throughout the 9 core courses to where by the time you complete the program and definitely into your last year of the program, you're prepared to take the FELE. We also have a selection of elective courses that are offered as well in order to meet the criteria for credit hours for the master's program. And those again are built into our program to provide you an opportunity to kind of explore outside of those core classes with the comps and skills, different areas of school leadership, and then building your toolbox for successfully entering into a beginning school administrator position. Our admissions process, and so currently we are in our admissions process for the upcoming summer cohort. And so if you're interested in applying for the upcoming summer, that deadline is March the 1st. And then for the fall, it is June the 1st. We have a rolling admission, and so we try to make sure that we're looking each semester to admit a new cohort of students. Our most recent cohort was right at 55 students for this past fall, which is a bit larger than our normal cohort, but typically we're admitting about 20 to 25 students per semester. You must submit or 2 of your most recent teaching evaluations. And so one of our program requirements is that you are currently an active teacher in a classroom. And so your most recent evaluations from your school principal. In terms of application documents, there is a statement of purpose, which is a 1 to 2 page statement explaining your area of interest for going into school leadership, a essay topic that's centered around a description or an analysis of a dilemma related to school leadership and how you were able to address that situation, a current resume, official transcripts, and then 2 letters of recommendation, of one of which that has to come from your direct supervisor, and then another professional reference. And then finally, our GRE requirement is currently waived through fall of 2021. And so that's another component that we're not having to take into consideration at this point in time. So which track is right for you? This slide just kind of gives a snapshot of our 3 separate programs, as well as the requirements and expectations. And so particularly with the entry degree requirement. And so depending on what you currently have in terms of your credentials, our master's program would definitely be appropriate if you have a current bachelor's degree. Also, if you're looking at pursuing another master's, for those students who are looking at financial aid assistance and those types of things, our modified certificate program is the only one that would not be eligible for financial aid because of university requirements. And then also just keeping in mind that the GRE is still waived through fall of 2021. Finally, if you have questions or concerns, email address as well as our dynamic program specialist, Ms. Deb Ham-Kelly, is available as well to communicate information as well as checking out our website. Thank you all for attending, and we'll be in a breakout room later on this afternoon to answer questions.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Patrice Ayatarola. I'm assuming you can all hear me. And I'm going to be talking about our educational leadership and policy programs. We have 3 majors that I'll be talking about. The first is going to be ed policy and education policy and evaluation. I'll also be talking about history and philosophy of ed, and also international multicultural ed. So our education policy and evaluation major, both at the master's and the PhD levels, are training you to develop and implement, analyze federal, state, and local education policies. And there are any number of reforms and educational initiatives that our students are interested in and our faculty have experience in. So I will talk a little bit later about the distinction between our master's program and our PhD program and kind of the different preparation levels. But then we have our history and philosophy of education program, and it's an interdisciplinary program that focuses primarily on history and philosophy, but also you're free to kind of bring in other disciplinary perspectives, history, sociology, etc. And what's interesting here is, well, it's based and rooted in the disciplines, it's also very much an applied program that looks at what's actually going on in education today, both in policy and practice. Our international and multicultural education obviously has two kind of perspectives. Obviously, it's focused on international development education primarily, but there's a multicultural component that kind of bridges and spans both domestic and international settings. And it's one of our majors that has been around since the mid-1970s, has an excellent reputation in the field of practice and both in terms, also in the scholarly world. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to actually hold off on 1 second in terms of just running through this slide and talk a little bit more about the distinction between our master's and our PhD program. But one thing that cuts across all of those majors, all three of those majors, is the fact that we value multidisciplinary perspectives. And that means we like to bring the lenses of sociology, we like to bring the lenses of history, philosophy, anthropology, economics. We have course offerings in all of those disciplinary courses, and you're also free, especially at the doctoral level, to go outside and take other courses in the disciplines itself. But having that multidisciplinary perspective is very important, especially in the field of policy, because policy is informed both in our understanding of what might work and also in our analysis of policies. It's very much informed by different perspectives, and the more perspectives that we could lend on that, the richer our understanding of what's going on in the world. So at the master's level, our degree requirements are a 3.0 undergraduate GPA. If you have graduate coursework, it's a 3.5 GPA. For summer and fall admissions this coming year, the GRE requirement is waived, and we ask that you submit a resume, a statement of purpose, your interest basically of why you want to be in the master's program in the particular major, and also 3 letters of recommendation, as well as transcripts. So our deadlines are February 1st for summer 2021, June 1st for fall 2021. And we do admit for each of the academic semesters, fall, spring, and summer. So if we go to the PhD requirements, also a 3.0 undergraduate GPA, 3.5 GPA. We do have a GRE requirement, but I can say that we are very holistic in looking at an applicant, and we are more than willing for applicants who demonstrate strengths, fit with the program, connections to faculty and the research that faculty are doing, as well as just more philosophically in terms of what we're doing through our coursework in the program. We do have a more holistic perspective. So while we do require them, we do look at every aspect of the statement of the application. And I would say the statement of purpose is a critical one. That's where we get insight on your interest in the program, how you see yourself fitting in as best you can by getting to know us by a session such as this, or over the web, or anytime you want to reach out to any of our faculty, please don't hesitate. So the 3 letters of recommendation, 2 of those must be, excuse me, academic recommendations from someone who knows you academically, a former professor, instructor, etc. You also need transcripts. And our application deadline, we only admit into our PhD program for fall, in the fall term. For fall 2021 is our next admission. That deadline is December 1st. So talking about career opportunities is where maybe I'll talk more about a little bit of the distinction between master's and doctoral graduates. Our master's students go on to with a master's degree, you can teach in the community college level. Many of our master's students have gone into governmental or research organizations where they're evaluating policies and programs. And as well as for those who are more inclined to kind of be in the midst of things, whether in the governmental position or more of the political sphere in the legislature, et cetera, be engaged with developing local, state, and federal policies and programs. So while you are taking some of the courses at the master's level that our doctoral students will be taking, our intention with master's students is to be much more applied, to really look at the real world and have applied examples and experiences in applying what you're learning in the classes to real world settings. That is true at our doctoral level as well, but we're preparing our PhD graduates to conduct original and influential research. And that may be ultimately in governmental positions, as a chief of an evaluation unit in state government, and research think tanks, and in colleges and universities as faculty members as well. So it's really the kind of the emphasis on original and influential research at the doctoral level that we're preparing you for. And I think Dr. Cox covered in his discussion on higher ed some of the distinctions and some of the ways in which we prepare you for that, both through our coursework that is strong in research methods, but also in disciplinary perspectives, but also in the experiences that you can get through assistantships. So just some statistics on kind of median pay a decade ago, so I hope this went up a bit. For policy analysts, it's about $51,000. For university, college, and professors, the Bureau predicts a 17% increase in jobs by 2020. That may have already taken place, but while we're in this kind of unknown world, I do think that this is still a ripe area for growth. And in fact, we're hiring a faculty position this year. So the median pay for a university professor is $62,000, but just remember that's typically on a 9-month contract. So it's actually it's probably a little bit more as a median pay. And I think that's it. But I'm going to stay on because I was representing Dr. Toby Park, who's the coordinator of Ed Leadership and Policy Program. Feel free to contact him. Feel free to contact me or any other faculty member in the program. And I will, in a second, when I finish, I'll put in some links into the chat. So I'm also coordinating the graduate certificate and program evaluation. And basically, it's a program that certifies one, obviously in program evaluation, but it's a signal to folks that you have the skills and the training to conduct program evaluations. And there are 4 required courses, not for an online D, but for our program certificate. And it's the introduction to program evaluation, the evaluation of new educational programs, and because analytic and research methods are critical in program evaluation, we also require an Intro to Basic Statistics course and qualitative research and evaluation methods. This qualitative research and evaluation method course is very much applied and is distinguished from the one that we have for our doctoral students that's very theoretical, that provides a kind of a more foundational theoretical basis for our doctoral students. And then there's any number of courses, particularly in advanced research and evaluation, as an elective. So there are a number of positions and professions in program evaluation. And I can say that this is a growing area, as the Institute for Education Sciences requires program evaluations for any number of their grant programs. And there are, in terms of different grant funding and also government funding that school districts receive, there are often requirements to do evaluations of how you've used those resources and the programs that you've invested in. So obviously the professions then are in social and community service managers, training developed specialists, management analysts, instructional coordinators, and obviously the program evaluator. And the program evaluator, both as perhaps an independent evaluator, running your own firm, as part of a firm that contracts with evaluators. Any number of the large research organizations as well have evaluation units, and often they're contracted on some of the larger grants to do very rigorous evaluations of different programs that are governmental funded typically. The average salary is between $58,000 and add a zero there for $80,000. To get into the admission, to get into the certificate program, if you're not a current FSU student, you can apply to a degree-seeking program, any one that you're interested in, or you can also apply as a non-degree seeking student. And you must complete a certificate admissions form to apply. And basically you could come test the waters, take a program evaluation course as a non-degree seeking student, or if you're in a degree program or interested in another degree program, you could still enroll in the certificate program. And all you want to make sure is that you apply for, you must apply before completing 2 courses towards a certificate. We do require an application for the certificate now, as both the university and the federal government are taking certificates far more seriously. Once you apply, and if you get in just by meeting the basic plan of having a course plan. And it's not binding. There's no cost to submit the application. And once you've submitted and been accepted into the certificate program, you have 7 years to complete your coursework. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email our general program evaluation certificate email address, where either our graduate assistant, Jonathan French, or myself will get in touch with you, and you can find out more about the program at this link. And I'll be sharing links for our other programs that I talked about. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Christine Moker, and I'm a faculty member in higher education. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the graduate certificate in institutional research. And I have previously worked in IR at 2 institutions prior to working on my doctorate, and I can say it's a really great and interesting field. If you like working with data, I would encourage you to check it out. So this is a credential for anyone who's interested in working in institutional research. And what that means is IR is a department within most colleges or universities that uses data on its own institution to inform decision-making. And they are also involved in federal reporting requirements for programs like IPEDS, which is a big data collection conducted by the US Department of Education, as well as doing their own internal research. And so this program is available to a broad range of students. You can be a degree-seeking student, either at the master's or the doctoral level. And the program is also open to any non-degree seeking students, as long as you've completed an undergraduate degree. We offer courses in higher education, assessment or evaluation, and institutional research. So the format of the program is fully online, with the exception that there are some additional methods courses that degree-seeking students may be taking as part of their degree program that might be face-to-face, which also count as electives in the IR program. The IR certificate also includes a practicum course, which is an independent project that you complete using skills that you've learned throughout the program, which is completed under supervision of the director of the certificate program. So the curriculum for the IR certificate is 3 required courses. First, there's an introduction to IR. Then there is the IR practicum, which I discussed, which is an independent project. And then there's a course on data-driven decision-making that all students take. Beyond that, you can choose 2 electives, and the 2 most common ones are Introduction to Program Evaluation and Survey Research Methods, as well as an option to use some electives from graduate research methods or statistical courses in the department. As far as the types of professions that people go into with this type of degree, there are many fields beyond just in IR offices that are involved with analyzing student, faculty, staff, facilities, and other types of data at the institution level, at the state level, or at the national policy level. In addition to IR offices, institutions commonly have offices for effectiveness, assessment, planning, and other related fields. And the average salary ranges, depending on institution type, range from about $51,000 to $65,000 a year for IR analysts and $65,000 to $96,000 per year for directors of IR. We've had many graduates of our IR certificate program that have gone on to successful positions in related fields, including the Vice President for Research and Policy at NASPA in Washington, D.C., the Director of IR at the University of South Alabama, the Associate Provost for Institutional Research and Planning at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and many other positions both in the US and around the world. In order to apply for admissions to the IR certificate program, the first step would be applying for university admissions as a non-degree seeking student if you're not currently enrolled in another program. And then there's a short admissions form for completion. There's no statements of purpose or essays or anything like that. It's a very simple form that just indicates the courses that you plan to take during the program and the timeline for completion. So as with the other program evaluation certificate program that we heard about, you need to apply for admissions to the IR certificate before you complete the second course in order for it to count towards the program. This program is, once you apply, you can, if you decide that you don't want to continue with it, you can stop at any time. It's not binding. It doesn't go against you on your transcript or anything like that. And there's no cost to apply for the IR certificate once you've been admitted to the university. And then additionally, once students are admitted, they have up to 7 years to complete the coursework. So maybe you might start it as a master's degree student, but you still have an extra course or 2 that you need to complete. You can do that from anywhere since the courses are all offered online, and complete the course even after you've finished other degrees here at FSU. So if you have any questions, I'll be around in the higher education breakout room in a little bit, and I would also encourage you to check out our website at education.fsu.edu/IR. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Courtney Preston. I am the director of the online Doctor of Education in Education Leadership and Policy program. And also on the call today is Dr. Eric Ludwig, who is the Associate Director of our program. And so this program is aimed at mid-career professionals who are interested in learning to use research to address problems of practice in their local context. It's the 3-year fully online program. The courses are largely asynchronous, and we do have a 3-day summer face-to-face institute that we ask students to come to every year. And like I said, the program starts in the summer. So this year we're accepting applications. The deadline is January 15th for a May start. In terms of admissions requirements, you can see them here. A statement of purpose. Tell us why you're interested in pursuing a Doctor of Education. We're also interested in a problem of practice statement. So this is a 3-year doctoral program. It's super speedy. So we want you to come in having already thought about what problem of practice you see that you might be interested in using research to address. This program is pretty broad. We have students who are K-12 focused, students who are higher ed focused. So let me give you a couple of examples of different types of problems of practice that students are interested in. So from a K-12 perspective, one of my former students had created science benchmark assessments for his school district, and he wanted to see how well aligned those science benchmark assessments were with the FSA science test at the middle school level. So that's what his problem of practice was focused on, is understanding that alignment. We have a graduate who, upon graduating, she worked in the Florida State University College of Medicine, and upon graduating, she was promoted to Assistant Dean of the College of Medicine. And her dissertation in practice focused on understanding the mental health challenges of medical students of color. So those are just a couple examples of the types of things that people come in wanting to study. We also require 3 letters of recommendation. It's our strong suggestion that at least 1, if not 2 of those letters be from someone who can attest to your ability to do graduate level coursework. And then also letters of recommendation from supervisors. And we do ask for a resume or a curriculum vitae, official transcripts from any university you've attended. You do need to have a graduate degree already with at least a 3.5 GPA. If you have taken the GRE and your scores meet the minimum scores that are listed there, that's great. You can apply with those. But we do have some alternatives to the GRE. So one of those alternatives is that you have 10 years of professional experience, including 5 years of leadership experience. Or you could have a completed doctorate degree already, for instance, a JD or an MD, with at least a 3.0 GPA. Or you could have completed your master's or specialist degree with at least a 3.75 GPA. And if you meet any of those 3 criteria, then GRE scores aren't necessary for you. Like I said, this course is a 3-year program. You do your coursework in the first 2 years. There are 69 required credit hours, and 45 of those are actually coursework. So during the fall and spring semesters, you take 6 credit hours, which is 2 courses. And in the summer, you take 9 credit hours, which is 3 courses. And then you take 24 hours of dissertation credits. So you complete your dissertation in practice during the 3rd year of the program. But you've been building up to that throughout your coursework in the first 2 years. So our coursework does have a strong emphasis on policy, and it's clustered into 3 areas. So foundations of education and education policy, and those are, there's a K-12 pathway and a higher ed pathway for those courses. Methodological approaches, so these are research methods courses, and then intensive academic immersion experiences. And these things are focused on how to be a doctoral student and ultimately on writing parts of your dissertation in practice. So the dissertation in practice is the capstone experience here, and it's different from a typical PhD dissertation. The goal of a PhD dissertation, as has been mentioned, is to produce new knowledge. The goal of a dissertation in practice is to address a problem of practice that you're experiencing in your local context. And it also has a different format slightly than the typical 5-chapter PhD dissertation. All right, so if you have any questions for us, if there are questions related to the actual admissions process, you can email Deb Ham-Kelly, who is our academic program specialist, and you have questions specifically about the program, the coursework, the dissertation in practice, anything like that, you can email either me or Dr. Ludwig, and we will be happy to answer those questions for you.
At this time, we'd like to answer any questions that you might have, general questions about the department or admissions. Well, a couple of things that we did not mention. We do offer graduate assistantships and research assistantships for students who are, for our doctoral students. The master's program in higher education, as Dr. Cox mentioned, has several partnerships with offices on campus that provide assistantships for students as well. And so there are funding opportunities in the department if you are, depending on what kind of experience you're hoping to get, as well as what our current students are working on as well. So there are some of those opportunities for you to receive funding. We provide a departmental assistantship for 3 years of funding every year for a new doctoral student. And that's something that I think we are unique in some of the other programs in the college. It's something we've committed to supporting multiple students in our programs throughout the department. Typically, if you have an assistantship, a graduate assistantship that is sponsored by the department or one of the campus partners, those assistantships typically do come with a tuition waiver. There are some exceptions to that, but for the most part, those assistantships do have tuition waivers. I know that funding is very important as you are considering pursuing your graduate degrees, and that's something that we like to let students know about in advance. If you joined us late and you have not dropped in the chat your particular program that you're interested in, if you could do that now, please. We'll be breaking out into specific rooms for the departments, for the programs, and I want to make sure that you get to the right room.